Having a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean you're willing to spend it. What looks like perfectly reasonable things to spend on might not be in the minds of the wealthiest people in the world, and it's often the case that the richest people out there are some of the most frugal. Find out just how incredibly cheap some of the filthy rich can be. Number 10. Ingvar Kamprad. Ingvar Kamprad was one of the richest people in Europe before he passed away earlier this year. With a net worth of about $56.4 billion, the founder of IKEA was always an incredibly frugal man, and some would call him an unashamed cheapskate. After a very short spending spree in the 60s, when he wore custom-made suits and drove a Porsche, Kamprad started living a penny-pinching lifestyle. He would always fly in economy class and bought pretty much all his clothes at flea markets. Swedish-born, Kamprad exiled himself to Switzerland as soon as IKEA started to become huge, in order to avoid Sweden's high taxes. Kamprad often traveled around the globe on business trips. Still, while abroad, he preferred to eat at IKEA's instead of any fancy local restaurants. For $4, he could get his favorite food, Swedish meatballs, lingonberry jam, and mashed potatoes. And then he'd take home the salt and pepper packets. As a company policy, all his employees would be told off if they didn't use both sides of a sheet of paper. And, ooh boy, the trouble they'd be in if they left the lights on. His second wife was reportedly very embarrassed every time they went to local markets, and Kamprad started to ask for discounts. Number 9. Carlos Slim Helú. Carlos Slim Helú is definitely the richest man in Mexico, with a net worth of $65.3 billion. Some say that his fortune is actually $71.9 billion, but no one has the exact number. Controlling the biggest telecom firm in Latin America, Helú doesn't spend as lavishly as everyone else would. Instead, he says wealth is like an orchard. A person that wants to be wealthy has to make a company grow, reinvest to make it bigger, and diversify into other areas. With so much money at his disposal, he could be one of those men who spend on yachts or private jets. But Helú prefers to live frugally. He drives his own car, an old Mercedes-Benz, and lives in the same 6-bedroom house in Mexico he's been living in for the past 40 years. Both are decisions that are either very brave or very stupid, because Mexico is definitely not the safest place to be a billionaire in, and much less to drive your own car through. Helú is the man who owns Telmex, the largest telephone service provider in the country. He dresses well, but Helú doesn't buy designer clothing. He gets his outfits only from his own clothing retail franchises, off the rack, like any of his employees. Number 8. LeBron James. Often called the king of basketball, LeBron James is definitely one of the wealthiest players of all time. Although his net worth is $375 million, several of his teammates claim he is one of the cheapest guys in the NBA. This comes as a surprise to anyone who's heard the news of James buying his new house. LeBron bought it for $23 million and didn't even blink. But apparently, the star is cheaper than anyone could imagine. Like many other people, LeBron uses Pandora to listen to music. Pandora is a music app that lets you listen to your favorite music for free. Every 4 songs, you have to listen to a commercial though. If you upgrade it to the premium version, you can skip the ads entirely. Still, LeBron has admitted he still has the version with ads, just because he doesn't want to pay the $4 per month it costs. Come on, James. And according to Miami New Times, the NBA star is one of the top 5 worst tippers. Once, he kept a restaurant open until 4 a.m. because he was partying with his friends. After a check of $800, he only left a $10 tip for their troubles, after making them stay open the whole night. Number 7. Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg is the 10th wealthiest man in the world. With a net worth of $27 billion, Bloomberg is a self-made billionaire, thanks to his company, Bloomberg L.P., a financial information company. Still, despite his billions, this man has taken frugality to the next level. You know how most wealthy people, as cheap as they might be, always spend hundreds of dollars on quality shoes? A decamillionaire once explained this, stating that cheap shoes wear you, you don't wear them. Well, Michael Bloomberg has proven him wrong. The billionaire has worn the same 2 pair of loafers every single day for the past decade. When asked about this, Bloomberg just answered the reporter that there was something called resoling and rehealing, and that people shouldn't throw away perfectly nice shoes just because they were a bit worn out. Bloomberg, former New York City mayor, has been photographed by the side of always impeccably dressed Michelle Obama. In several of these photos, Bloomberg looks like he's trying to hide somehow his worn shoes. I can only guess even he can't deny how old they look. Number 6. Bob Kierlin. Bob Kierlin is the CEO of industrial supplies company Fastenal Co. and the company's largest individual shareholder. Kierlin is worth about $248 million, and he's just keeping that money in the bank. Kierlin has taken frugality to an extreme. Unlike CEOs of other large companies, Kierlin has no personal secretary. He writes and receives his own correspondence and has been driving an Oldsmobile for years on end. But it's probably his clothing where his cheapness begins to really show. Kierlin says he would never pay retail, and his suits are proof of that. They'd probably cost around $200 each at a discount store, but Kierlin is proud to admit he got them for much less money. Kierlin got his suits from the manager of a men's clothing store. Don't get confused, it's not like the manager chose them for him at his store. Nope, the suits belong to the manager. He bought them used for about $60 each and has been wearing them for years now. Also, to reduce costs, Kierlin clips coupons from the Sunday papers. His company works under the same frugality ethic as he lives by. This means no expenses that aren't absolutely necessary. They don't have insurance for their trucks, for example, and all the pens they use are the ones other companies and investors give away as free samples. Number 5. Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga became famous after her big hit Poker Face, and who would have thought she actually had one all this time? With a fortune of about $275 million, she spent thousands of dollars in designer clothing and such. Still, she remains one of the cheapest celebrities out there. Gaga is obsessed with coupons. She doesn't go to the grocery store without them, but groceries aren't the only thing Gaga doesn't want to pay full price for. A strange habit for a millionaire, especially a fashionista like herself, Gaga also bargains when shopping for clothes. Her employees have also suffered for her cheapskate habits. Not too long ago, Gaga was sued by one of her former personal assistants. Jen O'Neill was suing Gaga for $393,000 for what she claims is more than 7,100 hours unpaid overtime. Gaga, angry at the lawsuit, said that no employee should ever think they were equal to her. Gaga, in her own words, is the queen of the universe and refused to let Jen sleep in the second bed of her private plane. Gaga said that she would not pay any of her assistants overtime because theirs were 9-to-5 jobs, only spaced throughout day and night. Yeah, right. Number 4. David Sheridan. Canadian-born David Sheridan has a net worth of $1.5 billion US. He made his money almost by luck. He introduced Sergey Brin and Larry Page, Google's founders, to venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins. As soon as Google took flight and started to make money, Sheridan was rewarded with a good chunk of Google stock. Now that Google is huge, the Stanford professor has become a billionaire without ever expecting to be one. Working for Stanford University, as he has for the past few decades, Sheridan still lives the frugal life of a computer science professor. Some habits die hard, and saving money to the last penny is one of them. When eating at an expensive restaurant, Sheridan always saves half his meal for the next day. He also reuses tea bags because you can still get tea out of them the second or even third time. Yikes. Sheridan's not a fan of expensive clothing, so he wears jeans to his classes. To avoid spending on gas, he prefers to ride his old bike everywhere. Aside from that, Sheridan has cut his own hair for the past 15 years. This way, not only does he not spend a penny for his haircut, but he also saves himself the small talk with the barber. Number 3. Barack Obama. While not exactly a penny pincher, Barack Obama can certainly be considered one of those men who try to spend as little as possible. Some people would call him frugal, others would call him cheap. Truth is, he's always been careful about where he's spending his money. When he was a law student at Harvard University, he chose to live a little further from campus just because the rent was cheaper. His former landlord stated that Obama thought this way he'd get more apartment for his money. He's also been criticized many times for donating only a small percentage of his family's total income to charity. When Obama was an Illinois state senator, he and his wife Michelle donated only 1% of their total income to charity. That's way less than other politicians. And the following years weren't much better. Their donations only improved when Barack got into the White House. Not only that, Michelle has exposed him for wearing the same tux and shoes for 8 years straight. Number 2. Warren Buffett. With a net worth of $90.2 billion US, Warren Buffett is the third wealthiest person in the whole world. The self-made billionaire has gotten this far by always valuing a good deal and never spending money unless it's absolutely necessary. When he had his first child, instead of buying a bassinet, even a cheap one, he preferred to turn a dresser drawer into it. Rich and resourceful at that. When his second child was born, the situation improved a little. He borrowed a crib from a friend for the newborn. Though he could afford way over 225,000 Lamborghini Aventadors, Buffett reportedly owns a Cadillac XTS that he bought in 2014 for a retail price of around $45,000. Not only that, he lives in the same house he bought for $31,500 in 1958. But Buffett has always been a penny pincher. In the 60s, Buffett was already a pretty successful man, signing up clients to invest six-figure sums with him. Still, when staying at New York's Plaza Hotel, he phoned a friend to bring over a Pepsi six-pack. Apparently, he didn't want to pay for room service. A similar thing happened in Hong Kong when he was there with Bill Gates on a business trip. Buffett invited Gates to a lunch at McDonald's. When it was time to pay, Buffett pulled out a bunch of coupons. Why two of the richest men on earth would ever pay $2 for a meal with coupons is beyond everyone. Then again, they may just be joking at our expense. Number 1. Donald Trump. If we can be sure of something, it's that Donald Trump is filthy rich. He might have started off with a small loan of $1 million, but he made it a 10-digit fortune of his own. Now, the Donald has a net worth of roughly $3.1 billion. The secret behind his money might as well be his penny-pinching habits. He said that he learned from his father that every single penny counts because they will turn into dollars before too long. And it's clear he carefully lives by this mantra. In a 1990 social experiment by Spy magazine, they sent out a load of checks with tiny sums of money to millionaires to see who'd cash them in. In this test called Who is the Cheapest Millionaire, the magazine reported Trump cashed checks for 50 cents and 13 cents. Some other millionaires didn't bother cashing them. After all, the time and effort to cash them would have cost more than the actual check. But it gets better. His Mar-a-Lago resort was blasted on social media earlier this year for serving caviar with plastic spoons. People were rather appalled at the whole thing. So if you thought some of your friends or even your boss was cheap, think twice. These celebrities have surely surpassed them. Which one surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.